This is the After Party, live with Kim McAllister. Pick a couch, grab a drink, and settle into the conversation.
Hey everybody, it's Kim, and you are on the After Party Live on a Trivia Thursday. And it's pre-recorded today because unexpectedly, I got called to drive to a field trip. We're going to the Charles Schulz Museum and ice skating with 5th grade today. It's funny, I had put my availability as backup plan because Jacob told me he didn't want me to go. Why? Because he likes to meet the other parents. But apparently someone couldn't go, so the backup plan was called in, which is why I wasn't on the Mark Thompson show today. So it's currently 6 in the morning and I'm taping this show, and I'm really hoping that Trivia Thursday works out in a tape recorded way. My thinking is if I repeat the question twice, you can maybe push pause if you think I'm moving too fast. I don't know. We'll see how it works out. But I didn't want to leave anybody high and dry, hoping that they would get Trivia Thursday and then skip out of town, going to ice skating and not doing my job. Uncool, right? Overnight, Rhonda kicked in $5 to the After Party Live via PayPal. Looks like she does it once a month, and that is amazing because that is actually what keeps this show going. Contributions, if it's a one-time, if it's once a month, whatever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The PayPal information is in the About tab here on YouTube, and it's also in every day's show description. So there you go. Enough said. Did you know that coffee might be going extinct? Coffee plants? Yeah. This is the word from the researchers who are saying the yield of coffee crops has decreased. And they think that coffee plants depend on water, and that is why they're not producing as much as they were. And if conditions continue, climate change, etc., we could see that we have a problem with coffee. Yeah. So there's a forgotten coffee bean, foreign and forgotten, that researchers say could save coffee from extinction. Right now, we use Arabica and Robusta. Those are the two. And those dominate the global coffee market. They make up just about 100% of all the coffee sold across the world, even though there are 122 other known species within the coffee genus, but they don't have a real impact on the industry. But we've got 60% of all coffee species under threat thanks to deforestation and, of course, as mentioned, climate change. And so now there's a look around at what other coffee species might be able to work in place of Arabica and Robusta, just in case. And one of the plants that researchers are looking for, is called Coffea stenophylla, also known as the Highland coffee. It originates from Sierra Leone and some neighboring countries in that area. And there was a big search to find it. They thought maybe it had gone extinct as well. But this coffee is supposed to be amazing, better than any coffee we have now. And so the thought is it's also hardier as well. Maybe it takes a little bit longer to grow and the yield isn't as much, but it also doesn't take as much water. So Aaron Davis is the head of coffee research at the Royal Botanic Gardens in London. And he was really trying to track down this species, which hadn't been seen since the 50s. He put up a wanted poster with the picture that you're seeing here of the coffee plant, and had colleagues in these other countries looking for this plant, but nobody could find it. So finally, he went himself. He found 1 or 2 plants after this massive search. I won't go into all the trials and tribulations. They did find some beans. They roasted them. And oh my gosh, he said, it's amazing. Here's the interesting part about this flower. In case you're doing your own search, the leaves are different. See how they kind of taper to that point? Yeah, they he Davis calls them uh the snake point, like a fang on the end. The flowers have 7 to 9 white petal-like lobes. Arabica and Robusta usually have 5. The leaves distinctive. One of the common names for this plant, Stenophylla, is narrow-leaved coffee because of its distinguishing narrow features with these long pointed tips. And another distinguishing feature of it is here. You see the beans, the fruits are black when they are ripe. And so that's really helpful in identifying Stenophylla. It grows very slowly for 6 to 8 weeks and then, boom, grows in size really quickly. The seeds within the fruit, though, take 30 to 35 weeks to fully mature. But again, they have a greater resistance to drought than other main coffee crop species, and they might be the answer to all of this. They're supposedly, according to botanists, superior to all the other species. There's a entry in an old book from the 1920s that calls Stenophylla exquisite, more delicious than the best Arabica. These old documents also say the species could grow in lowlands, survive high temperatures, and withstand drought. So, will farmers be motivated to grow it? Possibly. There was a study done in 2014 showing that climate change could slash the global area suitable for coffee production in half by the year 2050. And already, as mentioned, coffee crops around the world have recently fallen. Here's the data on that. The world's second largest coffee producing country is Vietnam. In 2023, they saw a 20% production drop. So companies are getting worried because they don't know where the coffee of the future will come from. 60% of wild coffee species are threatened with extinction right now. It's funny, this botanist from London, Davis, he ended up finding 2 jars of Stenophylla beans in the herbarium where he works. He said he was tempted to try those, but he was warned against it because they thought he might poison himself because the beans had been laced with these ancient preservatives. So he didn't try those, but he did find it in the wild, said it was absolutely amazing. So what he'd like to do, he said, even if the species aren't adopted by coffee producers, possibly explain the potential to create this cross-species hybrid, which he says is exciting at a time when climate change is a real threat. So there you go. Your coffee, you know, is at risk here, but it might turn out better for us because perhaps we'll get the Stenophylla and all will be well. Yeah, we'll see. Moving on to animals today. Look at this. It's a serval. It was found in Ohio. That's weird. They don't live there. Just seen wandering loose. It's an African serval cat. And the Washington County Sheriff's Office in Ohio had to issue a public alert on Monday warning residents about this suspected serval just wandering loose in Warren Township. The cat has been caught. It was located, it was safely captured, and now the Ohio Department of Agriculture is investigating the escape. They're still working to confirm the actual breed of this cat, thought to be a serval. They don't know where it came from either, but they do say this: servals are not legal to keep as pets in Ohio, and they are listed as dangerous wild animals. You can't have those cats. No, but they found it, and all is well. So that's the good news there with the serval. There is, I don't think I've covered this story yet. It's another one that I've been holding on to. There is a pharaoh's tomb that has been found. Look how deep they had to dig for this one. Yeah. It was pretty much a mystery. They don't know who was buried there, but they know that it's from the Abydos dynasty, which reigned about 3,600 years ago. A team of international archaeologists found this massive tomb that they think belonged to one of Egypt's earliest pharaohs. They don't know exactly who. The crypt was found in January, estimated to have been constructed during the Second Intermediate Period, wondering what that is, 1640 to 1540 BCE. And that was an era of instability, both politically and economically. And it broke up a unified Egypt into all these multiple rival kingdoms. So these archaeologists found this burial chamber at the base of a desert cliff about 23 feet beneath one of Egypt's oldest cities, Abydos. That's about 300 miles south of Cairo. They think that Abydos served as the burial place for Osiris, the god of the underworld. The legend has it that many of history's earliest pharaohs chose to be interred here inside a necropolis near Anubis Mountain. They've done some excavation work. It's revealed some architecture that is similar to another tomb found a few years ago. So they think maybe it belonged to a predecessor of Seneb K. They're still looking for a name. They still don't have it. They say the king's name was only originally recorded in painted scenes on plastered brickwork that decorated the entrance to the limestone burial chamber. They depicted goddess Isis and her sister Nephthys and hieroglyphic text on yellow bands, but it looks like ancient tomb robbers damaged the text during their trips into the grave here. So they think it could either be the pharaoh Senib or Paint Jenny, those two. So they're still excavating, they're still working on it, and I have some other pictures to show you. You can see how deep they have to climb down here. And there's what it looks like inside. Oh, interesting. Yeah, long lost ancient pharaohs. I'm fascinated by them. Okay, here's something else cool. This cute little girl, she's only 3. And this story, I should mention, was sent to me by 2 people. You guys knew this one was right up my alley. Teacher Lori kindly sent this story in, as did Calvin Wong. So thank you to both of you so much. This 3-year-old girl was on a family outing when she found what's being called a beautiful 3,800-year-old scarab amulet. Yeah, she's 3 years old. Her name is Ziv, and she was hanging out with family during a little family outing in Tel Azakah, Israel, in March. She was walking along this path and bent down, and out of all the stones around her, she just picked up this stone. I mean, she's a 3-year-old. She has no idea what she's looking for, you would think, right? She rubs it like a genie and removes the sand from it. And her parents said, "We saw something was different about it." The mom said, "I called my parents to come see this beautiful stone, and we realized she discovered this archaeological find." So immediately they call the Israel Antiquities Authority and take it in. And they say, yeah, this is 3,800 years old. And it is an amulet. They think it was a Canaanite scarab from the Middle Bronze Age. Back then, the doctors say that scarabs were used in this period as seals and as amulets. They were found in graves, in public buildings, and in private homes. Some of them have symbols and messages that reflect religious belief or status. So these are small objects, these scarab seals or scarab amulets that originate from ancient Egypt. They're in the shape of a dung beetle. And this one is considered sacred in the eyes of the ancient Egyptians. It was a symbol for new life because of the dung ball that it created and then laid its eggs into, and the eggs would then hatch from that. And the scarab for Egyptians also had some religious messages. It was a key feature in the biblical battle between David and Goliath as well. So this scarab that Ziv found now joins a list of Egyptian and Canaanite finds discovered in this area, which is really pretty cool. The story that she has to tell is pretty awesome. I don't think she gets to keep it, but she does get a certificate of appreciation for turning it in and being a good citizen. This scarab or amulet that she's holding here in the picture will be included in a special display for Passover that the Israel Antiquities Authority has prepared at the J. and Jeannie Schottenstein National Campus for Archaeology of Israel. And it will be featured along other finds from the days of Egypt and Canaan. Most of them will be on display for the very first time. Here's a close-up of that scarab. How cool is that? Thank you, Teacher Lori and Calvin Wong, for that awesome, awesome story. You can always email me stories. I love, love, love it when you guys do that. And you can find me at kim@theafterparty.live. kim@theafterparty.live. I'll put it up for you so you can see it. I have it. Here it is. kim@theafterparty.live. Best way to get me. And thank you again for the story. Okay. Teacher Lori also sent me this one, by the way. This study has found the strongest evidence yet that the shingles vaccine helps cut the risk of dementia. The study was done involving older folks in Wales. And what researchers found was that if they had the shingles shot, they were 20% less likely to be diagnosed with dementia than people who were not vaccinated. And that, they say, is the strongest evidence yet that the vaccine is connected, not getting shingles is connected to possibly a dementia diagnosis later on. And the sample size was pretty big. They looked at 280,000 older adults. And they figured out, they surmise that those who got this largely discontinued shingles vaccine called Zostavax were 20% less likely to be diagnosed with dementia over the next 7 years than those who went without it. Researchers at Stanford University say for the first time, we're able to say much more confidently that the shingles vaccine causes a reduction in dementia risk. If truly, they say, this is a causal effect, we have a finding that's of tremendous importance. That could be a pretty big deal. The latest work is published in the journal Nature. This, by the way, is not the first clue that the shingles vaccine might be a way to prevent dementia. When Zostavax was introduced in the United States in 2006, there were several studies that found lower rates of dementia in people who got those shots. Another study out of Oxford last year reported an even stronger protective effect in people who got Shingrix, which is a newer shingles vaccine. So what they don't know is the mechanism. So they're not sure how the vaccines protect against dementia. They think maybe they reduce inflammation in the nervous system. There's another thought that maybe they induce broader changes in the immune system that end up being more protective. And they do say the wider effects of this are seen more often in women. So there's that. More study is needed, as always, but I think it's a pretty interesting discovery. So again, thanks to Teacher Lori for that story as well. And speaking of healthcare, this is a story I found last night. More Americans than ever can't afford healthcare, can't afford prescriptions. This is the stress when you're sitting down to pay your bills, right? and you got to figure out what bill you're going to pay. Maybe your mortgage or your rent is more important than medical bills. Yeah, more than one third of Americans, it's an estimated 91 million people, say they couldn't afford access to quality health care if they needed it today. The study, a survey done by West Health Gallup Healthcare Affordability Index. The president of West Health Policy Center, which is a nonprofit organization focused on healthcare and aging, says the rising trajectory in the inability to pay for healthcare is a disturbing trend that's likely to continue and even get worse. That policy at both the state and federal level is urgently needed. And if it's not done, then the likelihood increases that more Americans will have to go without treatment or make these painful decisions, these trade offs between paying for medical care or paying for other necessities. Super sad. So, here's how it breaks down. The latest results show 35% of Americans could not access quality health care if they need it right now. The rates were higher among Black Americans. It was 46% couldn't access it right now if they need it. Hispanic Americans, 52%. We are doing something wrong. Come on. The access to health care was stable among wealthier Americans, but as obvious, declined significantly among lower income households. Two-thirds, 64% of people earning less than $24,000 said they can't afford health care. That's 11 points more than in 2023. 57% of households with an income between $24,000 and $48,000 said they struggled to afford health care. That's up 12 points from 2023. About half of Americans, 51%, are considered cost secure and that they didn't have recent difficulty affording healthcare or the prescriptions that they needed. That's the lowest level observed, though, since this started in 2021. Yeah, it's a big problem. And no one's really doing anything except, oh, we don't need Obamacare. Well, clearly, if people are having a hard time paying their medical bills or even accessing care, we need Obamacare. If you want to make it wider and better, like wider ranging, then good. Sorry, I know the show's not political, so I'll stop. Stop, Kim. We already talked politics today. Low Earth orbit missions. Let's move to some space talk. NASA, by 2026 and 2027, is looking for private space mission proposals. They want to send up 2 private missions to the International Space Station over the next 2 years. And right now, they're looking for the proposals to make that happen. They say it's an incredible time for human spaceflight. There are more opportunities to access space and grow a thriving commercial economy in low Earth orbit. Yeah, that's pretty cool. NASA says they're committed to supporting this expansion by leveraging their decades of expertise to help industry gain the experience needed to train and manage crews, conduct research, and develop future destinations. So it'll be a collaboration. They say these private astronaut missions are a key part of this effort and that they can provide companies with hands-on opportunities to refine their capabilities and build partnerships. They want a continuous human presence in low Earth orbit above the space station. So they already have done 3 private missions to the orbiting International Space Station, and there's a 4th one planned for May. That's going to be done by Axiom Space. Yeah. So get your applications in now. You want to have a space business, take everybody on up. Here's a lotto story of the day. Look at that guy. He looks pretty happy. It's another one of these stories where Dream it and it will happen. This guy is going through some tough times. Tommy. Tommy said he had a rough patch. He lost his mom and his dog within a very short time frame, and he said it really hit him hard. But his luck, he says, turned around when the ticket he bought from the Tenley market turned out to be a $1 million winner. He said, I had a dream just the other day. It told me I was going to be a millionaire. And here it is, he says, it's real. He's been visiting the same store to buy his tickets for decades. I wonder how much he shelled out to get that million. He said, as regular players at that store, we're all familiar with one another. We all talk about what numbers came out, who won, and this time, is it me? And this time he says, it's me. What he's going to do is use some of those winnings to take a vacation, and then wisely he'll save the rest for retirement. So well done, Tommy from Washington, D.C., who finally, after decades of playing and a magical dream, manages to make it into the millionaire circle. There's these two old ladies that have been sending the same birthday card back and forth for 81 years. You can tell it's kind of an old looking card. If you knew it was going to be used, this long, you probably would have spent more on the card and picked the prettiest one. But no. This woman from Kentucky got the latest version of the card in the mail from her lifelong friend on her birthday. And yes, it was the same card. They've been sending it for 81 years. Pat turned 95 on Tuesday. She said they've been doing this since they were 14 years old. They were living then in Indianapolis. Her friend Mary gave her this birthday card. So Mary's the first one that gave it to Pat when they were 14. Then Pat added her own signature to the card and gave it back to Mary for her birthday in May. Back and forth it went, over and over and over. They didn't make a deal to do it. It just kind of happened. Look at all the messages. They have to start writing really, really small. It's interesting to see how signatures change over the years as well, right? Again, this is now in its 81st year. And Pat said, we never said we're going to do this. She said, at least I don't remember saying that. It just happened. They now have a Guinness World Record. Well, they earned it in their 60th year for the longest greeting card exchange. That was, 21 years ago? Pat said, I think one of my children came up with the idea that this card had been going back and forth for so many years. So she's now getting ready to send the card back to Mary in May when it's Mary's birthday. There you go. There was another similar situation like this, although they didn't do it for 81 years. But there was a couple of ladies who exchanged the same 2 Christmas cards for 50 years. The card's getting a little beat up at this point, but it's still going back and forth. They probably have to open the envelope really carefully and stick it back in really slowly. It's kind of a cool record to have. Yeah, they're 95 now. Crazy. If you live in the UK, Cranky Charcoal talking to you, the UK officials say, let that grass grow. Now, we can't do that in California because that would be considered a fire hazard. But in the UK, apparently, they want you to let your grass grow because it increases the number of butterflies. And last year, 51 of the 59 butterfly species in the UK showed a decline in numbers compared to 2023 figures. So now conservation experts are asking homeowners not to mow their lawns over the next couple of months so that maybe it'll help increase the number of butterflies, because they think that these species are in long-term decline. Yeah. And the fall is being driven by human activity, the use of pesticides, and of course, our old friend climate change. So let the grass grow, apparently, unless you live in a fire zone. And hopefully you'll help the butterflies. You love butterflies, so we'll help them. and we talk for a moment about food poisoning. This is interesting. And I believe this. And here's why I believe this. When I don't know how old I was, maybe 9 or 10, I ate some sour cream and onion potato chips. It's like a little bag of them, like a lunch bag, right? Like the lunch snack size. And then maybe a couple hours later, got violently ill, threw up for a couple of days. Was it related to what was in the bag of chips, the sour cream and onion chips? Don't know. Could have been that I just ate something else or got sick or whatever it was. But from that point on, the smell of sour cream and onion potato chips makes me nauseous. Don't want them, don't like them, can't eat them. Never. It reminds me of vomit. And apparently, there's a reason for that. The brain remembers what gave you food poisoning. If you get food poisoning, says this article in Popular Science, after eating eggs, that there's a really good chance it'll take a while before you can even handle the thought of eating a nice savory omelet again. They say the food aversion can be really strong. So, this team of neuroscientists that were studying mice have now found the exact memory hub in the brain responsible for this reaction. And they pushed the findings out in a study published April 2nd in the journal Nature. They hope it could lead to future clinical treatments. It's called one-shot learning. Instead of learning through repeated trial and error experiences, one-shot learning is when, through a single experience, you've got a lasting memory created in your brain. And it's most commonly associated with these traumatic types of events, the kind that lead to anxiety, PTSD, something. And they say something similar can actually happen with food poison experiences as well. The CDC says food poisoning sickens 48 million people in the United States every year. One of the study's co-authors at Princeton, neuroscience, says, I haven't had food poisoning in a while, but whenever I talk to people at meetings, all I hear about is their food poisoning experience. So they looked at this area in the brain. They used purple Kool-Aid to do it because they say lab mice had never experienced that certain flavor. And it was a model for how they learn. And I hate the idea of making animals sick, but they did it. Their findings were interesting, so I'll report it. The mice learned to poke their nose into an area of the cage that would deliver this drop of Kool-Aid. And then, this is the sad part, and I'm sorry to tell you it, 30 minutes after their first taste, they got a one-time injection, which made them have like food-like symptoms, food poisoning symptoms. When they were offered a choice 2 days later, they avoided strongly the purple Kool-Aid and they went for plain water instead. So the study authors say what stuck out to them was this juice illness association found in the central amygdala. It's a small group of cells toward the bottom of the brain that involve emotion and fear learning. Also process a great deal of information from our environment, smell and taste. According to this team, the results show how critical the central amygdala is at every step along the way of learning. And they say it was very clear that it was like the mice were thinking back and remembering that prior experience that caused them to feel sick. This doesn't surprise me because of the sour cream and onion potato chips. So, next time, let's do it on people and see how that works out. There has been another dagger pulled from history. I only just talked about a dagger the other day, but look at this one. Ooh, I know. It's cool, right? Yeah. This one is a 3,000-year-old Hallstatt dagger. They found it on the Polish Baltic coast after a storm. It was recovered from a clay deposit that fell from a cliff in the wake of a storm. And they think it's about 2,800 years old. But It offers new evidence of craftsmanship and the cultural exchange from the early Iron Age. Kind of cool. They were using a metal detector along the shoreline in Kamien Pomorsky, and they found signals right near this fallen clay mass, and that's when they found the dagger inside the clay. So far, it's their most valuable discovery to date. The dagger is now being kept in the Museum of History of Kamian Land. It measures 24 centimeters in length, and it has some intricate engravings on the entire blade and on the hilt as well. Here's the way it looks. So it's hard to see, but it almost looks like a face, the third down from the top. And then there's some interesting carvings and designs all the way down the blade. Cool looking. Crescentic lines, starlight crosses on the blade and the hilt, a central decorative band, a symbol perhaps of constellations. This, they think, might have been a connection with sun worship, indicating this dagger may have been used in a ritual and not solely for battle. Go out after a storm with that metal detector, you never know what you're going to find. Can you imagine coming across this? Amazing. All right, it is time for Trivia Thursday. I have it right here. Here it is. Woohoo! Trivia Thursday. Okay, so here's how I think this will work the best. I think that I'm not going to be able to call out winners, but you guys will know. And it's not like we have prizes anyway, right? But if I'm moving too fast for you, I figure you can always hit pause because I don't want to give the answer too early. But I won't be able to see the movement in the chat to know when people have typed the answers. We'll give it a try. We'll see how it works. It's better than nothing. That's what I have to say. And I get to be a mom and I get to go to the field trip as well. Hooray. Hooray. And I feel kind of bad because I went on almost all of Julia's, and then Jacob's, I haven't so much. Every single year I was the room mom for Julia, and I've only been the room mom like 2 or 3 times for Jacob. So I kind of owe the kid, you know? First question. The tallest waterfall in the world is generally agreed to be Angel Falls. And what country is it in? I'll repeat the question again before giving the answer. The tallest waterfall in the world is generally agreed to be Angel Falls, and it is in which country? There it is. Tallest waterfall in the world. It is in Venezuela. If you guessed Venezuela, you are correct. Okay. What is the name of the tallest waterfall in Africa? And in which country would you find it? What is the name of the tallest waterfall in Africa? And in which country would you find it? Got a picture of it. I know, I'm really prepared with photo evidence. Look at that. Photos in trivia. Who knew? I'll say it one more time. What is the name of the tallest waterfall in Africa? And in which country would you find it? If you guessed Tugela Falls in South Africa, you would be correct. Tugela is Tugela, Tugela Falls in South Africa. Okay, this next one, I did not know this. We'll learn together if you didn't know it either. The Reichenbach Falls is a large waterfall in Switzerland, which was the scene of the apparent death of which fictional character? There's Reichenbach Falls, a large waterfall in Switzerland, which was the scene of the apparent death of which fictional character? And by the way, we'll do some waterfall trivia followed by Civil War trivia. I know. What can I say? The answer is Sherlock Holmes. If you guessed the fictional character that died at Reichenbach as Sherlock Holmes, you would be correct. Niagara Falls is actually a group of how many waterfalls? Niagara Falls is actually a group of how many waterfalls? How many you think? I know we've talked about this. Sometimes it's hard to remember back. We've looked at a lot of waterfalls on Wednesdays. We've been together for a lot of Wednesdays, my people. Niagara Falls is actually a group of how many waterfalls? Ready for the answer? Three. Three waterfalls make up Niagara Falls. I know we've been here before as well. Oh, look at that one. Remember that? Probably looks familiar to you. The Iguazu Falls are waterfalls on the border of which two countries? The Iguazu Falls, Iguazu, don't look it up, are waterfalls on the border of which two countries? I'm going to make sure to give you guys enough time to think and then type it in. Here comes the answer. If you're not ready for it, pause it up. Iguazu Falls are on the border of Argentina and Brazil. Argentina and Brazil. They're so pretty, aren't they? Look at that rainbow. What word can be used instead of waterfall, especially for one containing great volumes of water rushing over a precipice? What word can be used instead of waterfall, especially for one containing great volumes of water rushing over a precipice? What do you think? Instead of waterfall, we could call it a... I'll give you the answer. You ready? A cataract. Just like having cataracts, I guess, in your eyes. Yeah, a cataract. That word can be used in place of waterfall. Which American national park is internationally recognized for its granite cliffs and waterfalls? Which American national park is internationally recognized for its granite cliffs and its waterfalls? You ready for the answer? Picture might give it away. Here it comes. Yeah, that's Yosemite National Park, internationally recognized for its granite cliffs and its waterfalls. Okay, I just have a few more of these left. Several of the tallest single drop waterfalls in the world can be found in which European country? I hope I'm not moving too fast. Several of the tallest single drop waterfalls in the world can be found in which country? This one might be harder. So I'll give you the answer sooner. Are you ready for it? Pause me if you're not. Norway is the answer. Norway. What is the name given to the largest of the waterfalls that collectively form Niagara Falls? What is the name given to the largest of the waterfalls that collectively form Niagara Falls? This is the biggest of the three. What's the name of it? Apparently, they each have individual names. Individuality, you know. You ready for the answer? What name is given to the largest of the waterfalls that collectively form Niagara Falls? If you said Horseshoe Falls or Canadian Falls, you would be right. Horseshoe Falls, also called Canadian Falls. Last waterfall question. At 40 meters in height, Why might you find the rain vortex in Singapore in the record books? At 40 meters in height, why might you find the rain vortex in Singapore in the record books? Pardon me while I take a sip of Coachella Valley vanilla iced tea. Oh, that's good. Makes my life better. Mm. At 40 meters in height, where might you find, or why might you find the rain vortex in Singapore in the record books? You ready for the answer? Because it is the world's largest indoor waterfall. There it is during the day. Apparently, it lights up with all kinds of colors. Cool, right? The rain vortex in Singapore, it's in a shopping area, and it is the world's largest indoor waterfall. That's right. And thus ends our waterfall trivia. I do have a couple of Civil War questions to ask. Sadly, I didn't download Civil War pictures. Between which years was the American Civil War fought? Between which years was the American Civil War fought? Don't Google it. Think back to history. Between which years was the American Civil War fought? The answer is 1861 to 1865. 1861 to 1865. Next question. About how many men fought in the war? Approximately how many men fought in the Civil War? Mhm. I'll ask it again and then I'll answer it. Approximately how many men fought in the Civil War? And the answer, more than 3 million fought in the Civil War. Yep. What was the name of the first battle of the American Civil War? What was the name of the first battle of the American Civil War? Mhm. Ready for the answer? It was the Battle of Fort Sumter. hmm Battle of Fort Sumter was the first battle of the American Civil War. What was the bloodiest battle of the American Civil War? What was the bloodiest battle of the American Civil War? If you guessed the Battle of Gettysburg, you would be correct. I've actually been there and it's so haunting. Which was the first state to secede from the Union? What was the first state to secede from the Union? Right now I'm picturing you furiously typing. What was the first state to secede from the Union? The answer is coming right at you. Who got it first? South Carolina was the first state to secede from the Union. Yep. I learned on this one. True or false? Some Native American tribes were allied with the Confederacy during the Civil War. Kind of gave that away, didn't I? I'm sorry. Some Native American tribes were allied with the Confederacy during the Civil War. The answer is true. Some Native American tribes, like the Creek and the Choctaw, were slaveholders and found a political and economic commonality with the Confederacy. I did not know that. What types of vessels were the Monitor and the Virginia? What types of vessels were the Monitor and the Virginia? I know Uncle Jim's probably killing it on this one right now. What types of vessels were the Monitor and the Virginia? Peter Newton's pretty historically minded as well. You guys all are smart. Smarter than me, that's for sure. The Monitor and the Virginia were ironclad warships. That was the type of vessels they were. Ironclad warships. Hmm. Okay, if you know this, then hats off to you. What type of pet did General Robert E. Lee keep with him during the Civil War? What type of pet did General Robert E. Lee keep with him during the Civil War? Anybody? I'm telling you right now, I would have no idea. The answer is a pet chicken. Robert E. Lee kept a pet chicken with him during the Civil War. Remember? No questions, no doubting trivia. What is the period after the Civil War ended called? What is the period after the Civil War ended called? Yeah, you got it. I know you got it. You got this one. The answer is Reconstruction. Reconstruction was the name of the period after the Civil War ended. There were a couple I didn't do because I thought they were a little too hard. I had them in my stack of questions, but I'll throw them out here in the end. There was a Union spy that worked as a servant in the Confederate White House. Who was the spy? What was the spy's name? What Union spy worked as a servant in the Confederate White House? Does anybody know? I'd never heard of it. So I took it out because I thought maybe it was too hard. We'll see if anybody knows it. What Union spy worked as a servant in the Confederate White House? Here's the answer. Mary Bowser. She was one of Jefferson Davis's own slaves, and she served an important role in the Union spy ring that was organized by Elizabeth Van Lew. Who knew? Someone in the chat probably knew. I, on the other hand, did not. Here are the other two I left out because I don't know. I wasn't sure if they were spicy enough for you. What was the name of the Union Army during the American Civil War? What was the name of the Union Army? If you guessed the Army of the Potomac, you would be correct. Union Army was called the Army of the Potomac. What was the name of the Confederate Army during the American Civil War? Again, what was the name of the Confederate Army during the American Civil War? If you guessed, pause me if I'm going too fast. If you guessed the Army of Northern Virginia, you would be correct. And well done. Last question. Approximately how many African American men enlisted in the Union Army? Approximately how many African American men enlisted in the Union Army? The answer? 180,000 African American men enlisted in the Union Army. 180,000 is the answer. And that, my friends, is Trivia Thursday after party style. Thank you for playing, even though I know it was weird when I taped it, but I really appreciate you sticking around and playing anyway. Tonight, 5 p.m., the Nikki Maduro show happens. It's one of the times I look forward to most in the week. We have so much fun. Cocktails, mocktails, and politics. 5 p.m., the Nikki Maduro show. Tell everyone you know we're trying to bump her up to 5,000 subscribers and keep that show going because I really, really don't want it to go away. So, Nikki Maduro show, the Nikki Maduro show. 5 p.m. here on YouTube. Set an alarm on your phone and make sure you join us. We'd love to have you along for the ride. And that is again tonight. So pretty soon, 5 p.m. right here on YouTube. Tomorrow, of course, you got Friday coming in. Dr. Dania will be on the Mark Thompson show in the 11 o'clock hour. Friday Fabulous Florida, the dynamic duo Jim Avila and Michael Schur, followed by Michael Snyder. Going to be a great Mark Thompson show, a very full, robust show. And then the After Party Live brings you Tim Sika, and we'll talk movies as well. So, going to be a great Friday. Until we meet again for the Nikki Maduro show, make it a great day. And again, thank you so much to everyone for putting up with me not being here today. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you, everyone who has contributed to the After Party Live and keeps this show going. You guys are super awesome. All right. Until we meet again at the Nikki Maduro show, make it a really great day.
The After Party Live would like to thank the following contributors and viewers like you.